What's up, everybody? Trayvon here with ScenTTalkTV, and today I will be doing a full review on a fragrance from the house of Lattafa, a fragrance from the house of Lattafa. And it's a little bit of a comparison video as well, because some of you are concerned about if this particular fragrance is redundant, or you should pass on it because it's redundant, or you should pick it up because it is different from its original, the original of this particular line. But I'm here to shed some light on that topic. But I'm talking too much. I just hit my glasses. I'm talking too much. Without further ado, let's just jump into it. And so I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, from the house of Lattafa, I have Lattafa's Khamrah Dukhan, if I pronounced that right. Yeah, it's something about this bottle. You know, it's the same style bottle and stuff like that as the other two, but it's just something about the gradient and the coloration of the juice inside of the bottle and the bottle itself that just looks pretty good versus the other two. But yes, indeed, let's dive into it. This fragrance ran me $33 and some change. Okay, full presentation of the box. You have the name of the house right there, name of the fragrance right there in the middle, as well as the flanker name right here. And you have at the top of the box, you have the logo of Lattafa right there, nothing on the side right there, and you have the holographic sticker right here with the QR code. As you flip it at the bottom, you have the QR code, barcode, and some information right there at the bottom of the box. As you switch it around to the back of the box, you got the name of the fragrance at the top, as well as the size and concentration with the ingredients, all that good stuff right there. So as you open the box, the fragrance sits in just like that with a nice presentation of a little mirror on the back of the box right there behind the fragrance bottle, which is pretty nice, very, very nice. And you have the size and concentration of the fragrance right there. Okay, lovely people, the bottle. Got the name of the house, the name of the fragrance right there on this little template right here in front of the bottle. And you also have on the top, you know, the name of the house right there at the top. At the bottom, you got a little sticker right there that is like insanely crooked, you know, with the name of the fragrance, logo, QR code right there, size and concentration. Nothing on the back or the sides. It is a snug fit. Nothing on the inside of the cap right there. The cap clicks into place. Nothing too funky with the atomizer, you know, no leakage or anything like that. So that's a very, very good sign. The atomizer, ooh, it's kind of bad, but it's still good, but it's kind of bad. It just went almost in my eye a little bit, but it is what it is. Too much of a wide spread is what I was trying to say, but let's continue. Okay, people. What do I get out of this fragrance? I had an amazing time testing this bad boy out, you know, while I was at work, you know, while I was doing like errands and stuff like that. I really spent a lot of time with this fragrance, you know, seeing the way that it smells and how it performs. And right up top, it has like this unique note of pimento in it, which gives off a very, you know, warm, spicy, peppery note that's a little bit on a herbaceous side of the spectrum, and it's backed up by this syrupy, sweet, candy-like fruitiness from that mandarin orange that's in the top of this fragrance. So it is very dominantly syrupy, sweet, and spicy in the opening of this fragrance. But let's just jump into the notes. Okay, the top notes is you get some spices, pimento, and mandarin. As stated before, you do get like a herbaceous, like zesty pepperiness from the pimento, which is uniquely well put, backed up with that mandarin orange that gives it like a syrupy, sweet type of candy-like fruitiness on top of that pimento. You know, spices is just like an oriental type of a spice. It gives it a little bit more oomph in terms of that spicy accord that it gives off in the opening. You know, it's very, very dominant with the spices, you know, kind of smooth out with that mandarin or orange a little bit, you know, as the mandarin orange immediately comes up to play its spot in the top notes. Once you get into the mid notes, you get some incense, labdanum, orange blossom, and some patchouli. Now, the incense is not really too much of a dominant factor when you get into the mid notes. The smoke is a little bit chill, mellow, kind of low key. But once you get into the that labdanum, sweet, floral, leathery, masculine note, it is there, but averagely, and it does mix in very well with the pimento and that mandarin orange. Giving it a little bit more of a masculine touch as you transition into the mid, because in the opening it's a little bit more on the playful side, but once you transition into the mid though, it gets a little bit more masculine once you hit that labdanum and that patchouli. The patchouli is my favorite part. Dark, sweet, a little bit of mysterious, earthy touch when it comes to that patchouli. But the orange blossom, it has like this white floral touch, brightens it up just a little bit, not too much. But the base notes, you got some praline, tobacco, amber, tonka bean, and some benzoin. Now, the praline, this is where it gets a little bit more balsamic, because the praline and the benzoin that's inside of this fragrance really does create like a balsamic gourmand touch to it as it completely dries down on your skin. You get that sweet almond vibe from that tonka bean, which sweetens it up even more in the dry down. And the benzoin kind of takes that, that aggressive spice from the pimento and that sweetness from the mandarin orange. That benzoin is what smooths out everything. Just picture like some sanding paper on the notes and stuff like that. Smooths it out a lot, because that pimento that's inside this is kind of strong, at least to my nostrils. It's kind of strong, and that benzoin comes in and tames it down a lot as it dries down in your skin. Then you're met with that tobacco and that amber, which warms it up, makes it a little bit more sweeter, but not too aggressively sweet. It's still maintaining a low profile, but it's still noticeable in the base. So overall, you just get this unique, fresh spice, zesty spice from the pimento with a syrupy, sweet, candy-like fruitiness in the mid. Just pleasantly just transitions into the mid, into the dry down, making its presence well known with all the other notes and meshing well with all the other notes as well. This is a great fragrance. I've been trying to find this fragrance for a long time. I've been seeing people at Burlington pick it up during the holiday season, but my Burlington in my area did not really touch bases as far as like getting this bad boy on the shelf. But I finally managed to find this one. Well, a lot of these, because after the holiday season, it was like 6 of these on the shelf, and I managed to get one, and I'm happy to have it in my collection. But it's a little bit of bad news behind this one. It's not too much of bad news to me, but it might be bad news for you guys. But I just want to share this with you. My thoughts in comparison between these two. The original and Dukhan, if I pronounced that right. Both of these are similar to each other when it comes to that sweet, warm spice, but it is different from each other. Some people can't detect the difference. I detect the difference. They share the same notes though. They share the same notes of I think praline, the tobacco, I think the benzoin and amber, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do share some notes that is, reminiscent to each other. So, but once it dries down, it changes into something like, they're distinct from each other, especially in the opening. The opening is a lot different than this one because of that pimento note that's inside of this one, giving it a warm, zesty type of a sweet candy-like spice when it comes to those two notes with that pimento and that mandarin orange. This one shares the same association with that warm spice, but they are completely, well, not completely, they are still different from each other in a way. Okay, now just to get this one out of the way, just in case you guys are wondering how does, qahwa stacks up against the other two or against Dukhan. This one is, to me, in a whole different league of its own. All three of these share the same warm, sweet spice, but they all individually go into a direction of its own, but still staying true to the same, DNA within each other. All three of them are staying true to that same, typical scent profile that, Khamrah gives off, but you know, it still uniquely branch off and do its own thing, but still familiar to each other. Okay, now that that is out of the way, let's get into the performance. The performance was not bad at all. If you got good performance with qahwa and the original, you're gonna get good performance out of this one as well. You know, I'm an oversprayer, and I recommend that you don't overspray with this one because this can come off to be very nauseating, which I did get nauseated because I did overspray with this one. And I'm here to tell you guys that you don't need to overspray with this bad boy. You know, I got a solid good, 6 to 7 hours plus. It was a skin scent, like, when it got close to like the 6th hour mark, but the projection was nuclear by me overspraying, that is, for a good like 1.5 hours to 2 hours. It set close to the skin, when it got close to that 6 hour mark. Total longevity, 6 to 7 hours plus. And that's not bad. With this one, this is beautifully well put. Especially my favorite part of this fragrance is that pimento and that mandarin orange. Once it goes into like, all the other notes, it's cool, but my favorite part is the opening of this. And to me, on my skin, the opening really kind of carries its way throughout the longevity of the fragrance just a little bit. It kind of like fades a little bit, but it's still there to my nose, in my experience, that is. Okay, if you guys are wondering about the age bracket that can wear this, I'm pretty sure that any age group can wear this. Well, at least, the younger guys to like middle age, doesn't really have too much of maturity that's inside of here, at least, into the mid, but, that's kind of short-lived, for like the older gentleman to appreciate. But if you're an older gentleman and you like this, wear it. Like I say in all of my videos, it does not matter. But specifically, I say like, younger guys to middle age with this one. Seasons to wear this, you already know. You already know based on the notes that I presented to you. You already know that it's going to be like a fall and wintertime scent. Yeah, I was going to say springtime, when it's cooler, but nah. This is like too warm and sweet of a scent, kind of throws the vibe off, in the springtime. So I will say fall and wintertime with this one. If you're wondering if I got any compliments, I got one, which is good enough for me, even though I don't wear fragrances for compliments, but it's still a win. One of my coworkers said I smelled good, and of course I said thank you, so it's still a win in my book. So it can garner you compliments if you wear it right. But I was borderline just about to just throw the whole vibe off at work because we are in close encounter. So I oversprayed, and I'm glad I didn't turn nobody off. At least they didn't tell me. But yeah, at least I got one compliment out of this one about overspraying. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my final thoughts on Lattafa Khamrah Dukhan. Again, if I pronounced that right. This is pretty nice, pretty nice. If you're wondering if it's like, a redundant purchase to the original, I will say it's not. Then again, I'll say that it is, but it's a subtle, reminiscent to the original when it comes to that warm, sweet oriented spice that it gives off, typically. But, it really goes into its own, direction, especially when it comes to that pimento note that's in the opening. It does its own thing, but it's staying true and reminiscent and familiar when it comes to that, that typical sweet, warm oriented type of a spice that you get, in all three of these. They stay familiar to each other, but they branch off and do its own thing. So if that's enough for you to buy one, I really highly consider that you get one of these if you haven't already, to complete the collection of this particular line. But if that's not good enough for you, hey, just pass on it. But in my recommendation, I think you should pick it up. So that's all that I have for ScenTTalkTV, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, you know what to do. You got to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And I will see you guys in the next video. Be safe out there and be blessed and have a good one. I'm out of here. Peace.